Here's the agenda. Basically, we've got a member conversation segment from James tonight. And we have our main event, which is the disruption opportunity in mixed reality. And Anatolie is going to be giving that. We, as all meetings, have door prizes, refreshments after the main event. And we have an official stop time of 8, and we need to be out of here by 9 o'clock. So a couple quick things that have gone on since we last met. There has been a C# wrapper for the device portal REST API. So for those people that are connecting up to the device portal over REST, we now have nice C# wrappers that allow you to programmatically do some cool stuff with the mixed reality streaming and some other things that you might want to look into. Developer case studies have been published. So things like the Holo Studio and some of the other projects that were released early on, I think Fragments and 2 or 3 others are up there. Those case studies provide kind of a how-to or how they did those particular projects and some really useful tips for the developers in the crowd that want to do similar kinds of things like 360 experiences, for instance. More third-party apps are appearing all the time in the store. I think last I looked, we're around the 65 mark. A couple of notables, though. I'm not sure if we have Zagat in the crowd. One of our members released a really cool app that you should check out called Dinosaurs or Dinosaur Land. Oh, there you are. Yes. Been trying to get these guys to come up and do a member conversation talk on that. We'll see. Maybe you can nudge them later on. That's a real cool app that you really should check out. And ActionGram, the beta that you've seen all kinds of stuff on Twitter and YouTube over the last while because it's been a limited beta, has now opened up to a public beta. So you can get your hands on that and create cool little things to put on YouTube. Locally, there are a couple things that you should also be aware of that are coming up in the near future. Seattle VR Hackathon downtown this weekend from Friday to Sunday. We have a rep in the crowd here that can, Carl, sorry, thanks. Carl, is there anything you'd like to say? You mentioned there were still some tickets left.
Yeah, we're down to the last 20 people. So how many
So only 28 spots or so left. If you haven't done a hackathon in the past, doesn't matter if you're a dev, a designer, or what role you like to play in the project. Hackathons are pretty cool, and they will push you to your limits and expose you to the technology in a way that you haven't normally been exposed. Immerse is a conference that you might know by CVR. CVR has happened the last couple of years here in Bellevue, as a matter of fact. We are one of the hot spots where a lot of VR, AR work is going on. So there is an annual conference that takes place in the Maidenbauer Center. And Immerse this year is October 11th. We're a co-sponsor of the event. We will have booth space. We are interested if there are members in the area that want to get involved and help us with our booth presence. We will probably be demoing HoloLens devices to people at the conference that haven't experienced well, or maybe they have and they just want to experience it again. But we'll be giving HoloLens experiences in our booth from what we can tell at this point, and we could use a couple extra hands to help pull that off. So please connect up with me later if that's something that interests you. So that's what's going on locally. Now I'm going to pass over the mic to James, and I'm going to call up his slides so that he can give you a view of some of the stuff that he and his company or his group of folks are into in this space that's kind of different and something you might not have seen. So please welcome James.
So you are going to control the PPT?
One second, we'll call it up and you should be able to use the clicker as well.
Or better for me to control it. Which one is this?
So left and right moves forward and back through the slides.
Okay, sure. Okay, my name is James Xuan, co-founder of Cooptry, and also a former Microsoft employee as well. So what is Cooptry? What it can do with HoloLens? here. As we know, the era of smart technologies is coming. I think this time is real, look like. So it's probably will totally change our life and also the work and also work, right? So I don't know, it looks like a very crazy, especially AR space. The problem with, that's here, I think. The problem with the smart new technology is they are new concept, they're expensive, they're complex. Typical consumer need a lot of education. Why I have to spend so much money to buy this, right? So the user experiences definitely is absolutely critical in market adoption for smart technologies. So smart technology change very fast. If you cannot grab the market share, you die very quick, right? Because of high competition. So for example, even HoloLens, I think some people probably are going to be HoloLens developers, but you have another dependency, the HoloLens device, right? Without device, you cannot push your products. So basically, when HoloLens is going to be released to the market commercially, how quickly it can be adopted by the marketplace, by your target market, right? So that's a risk. But in the end solutions, do we have a better solution, a platform? Whenever you are ready, HoloLens are ready, we can quickly push it to the market. We believe we have that solution. So the best solution, we believe, is provide the best user experiences to consumers, especially early adopters. Like people can try before buy, like here, probably, right? And answer questions and support after sales, just like a Microsoft Store. The problem with the Microsoft Store and App Store is too expensive, right? Only have a few locations. They cannot carry all the products. They are not going to explain your apps, right? So we have a new concept. We believe it's highly scalable and also with extremely low cost. And probably people will say, hey, this sounds familiar. Look like an Airbnb and Uber. Yes, it's very similar. So in the future, hopefully in the near future, anybody come to Cooptry, specify a device like HoloLens, then immediately will show nearby where the local demos, where I can try the products. Can I take it home, right? Where the training are, and plus all the other local services which truly provide end-to-end user experiences before sales and also after sales. So anybody, you, this group, or any local business can be the local service provider as far as you are qualified and authorized. So the business model very similar to Airbnb, but we have this idea 6 years ago, but it never make it happen for some reason. So it will become a one-stop for any product. So the events can be anywhere at any time, coffee shops, parks, anywhere. So you can say, hey, this sounds like a good idea, but how are you going to build this network quickly? So we have actually many strategies. So one strategy is work with this nonprofit organization, a new NGO. So this NGO has the same mission as Cooptry. Our mission is to help local schools, students, local community, local small business to quickly learn, discover, and adopt smart technologies. So the NGO will divide its future members into major categories, for example. And also, one is called technology, and one is called industries, and try to connect the two together so that can quickly market, if your product is good, to the target industries quickly. How the two companies are going to work together? Cooptry is an internet company which do all the online services, putting all those pieces together. And STA is a nonprofit, mainly working on policies, processes, and developing its local chapters everywhere. and local chapter can target the local communities online, offline. So if your product is good, regardless your company is small or large, where you're located, we can help you to quickly market in any target market quickly. So currently we are working on student clubs, and currently we are piloting with 2 schools, officially approved by the principals. We know it's very hard to get into school campuses, right? So we did. And also we are going to work with UW clubs. They are all our local chapters, right? They are our local chapters. So for the next 3 months, we're going to pilot with them. If successful, we try to scale it across many campuses in the US. So with such kind of network, we hope we can help you if you're HoloLens developers, even Microsoft, we can help you to recruit new members from students from the local communities. And also we can help you the partnership. More importantly, we can help you to recruit early testers, early adopters in your target market to help you to validate the market, to test the market, to launch the product, to create the customer reviews, to get the confidential feedbacks. That's very crucial. We can do this very, with a low cost, can do this very quickly. And more important, it's more trustful. So that's the end of my conversation. So if you like what we are doing, so talk to me afterwards. Thank you.
So as always, the point of member conversations is to seed other conversations and get the ball rolling in the break time that we have in pizza hour or whatever other time you get a chance to connect and talk to James if you're interested in contributing and participating in the stuff he's doing, or you just have some questions about how do you think that's really going to work. So that's the purpose, is to get a platform, a soapbox for a moment, to get out in a couple of ideas and start conversations so you know what other people are up to. Our next presenter is from Microsoft. He's been involved on the HoloLens team and been involved in efforts like Holo Explorer and a number of other projects. I'll let him tell you what he's done because I'm kind of winging it at this point. Anatolie was generous. He's a member of the group, and he was generous to come up and volunteer to be one of the presenters. We're always looking for Microsoft folks, so if there are other Microsoft folks in the crowd, or Unity folks in the crowd, or just members that have really cool companies and projects and other things that would make good content. We're always looking to book months and months ahead. So let us know if you'd like to present, or somebody from your company. Please welcome Anatolie from Microsoft.
Is there a switch to awesome technology? Okay, so if you're going to disrupt really anything, you have to position yourself now and think beyond the next 5 years. And now is one of those once-in-a-lifetime opportunities of fundamental technological change. You've seen also James has been mentioning, and there are lots of other technologies bringing up, like happening now. So you have to look beyond the 5 years and start leveraging like what's going to happen next. So you don't chase what's happening now because it's a moving target. You have to look ahead and shoot for that. So full disclosure, I work for Microsoft on the HoloLens experiences team. However, today the talk is not about HoloLens. It's about a different way of thinking about augmented and virtual reality. I have been on this team for several years, so I'm going to be sharing my experience and my thoughts on this. So I'm not going to make any official Microsoft announcements. Just saying. So anything I say is my personal opinion. So today we'll look 5 to 10 years ahead. What I will present will hopefully change the way you think about augmented and virtual reality. And many of you have been already working with HoloLens and probably already are well into this trajectory. But hopefully for many of you, this is going to be something new and worth listening to. So I will present 8 differentiated features of mixed reality. This should give you a deep understanding and a competitive advantage when you think of what's coming next. So you can leverage that, kind of positioning yourself for the future. So let's look sort of like at the big picture. Goldman Sachs, you probably have seen these numbers already, forecasts $80 billion within the next 10 years, 9 years. And sure, this includes global sales and includes all sorts of industries, service providers related to AR, VR, or manufacturing, advertising, whatnot, so related directly or indirectly. But still, this is annual revenue. And it's also conservative. Deloitte forecasts 150 billion within the next 4 years. And other analytics companies forecast lots of money there. So the important part here, well, other than these analytics companies can't get on the same page, are these big numbers, right? So how do we go about it? How do we tap into this potential revenue? Today, you probably have read a lot online, and you have experienced as well. That AR and VR are very different from each other. And everybody is telling about how different they are. Right? So then the question is, should you invest into AR or should you invest into VR? Which way to go? Right? I guess that's the 80 billion or 150 billion dollar question. But fundamentally though, this is the wrong way to think about it. Limiting yourself to this binary model guarantees you're going to miss the high value scenarios that are available. So what do I mean by that? Mixed reality is a whole spectrum. And augmented reality and virtual reality are just 2 points on this full continuum. In fact, they're not even discrete states. They're experiences all over this axis. So if you imagine you have sort of like a virtuality slider that you can move anywhere you want to tailor exactly to the experience you want to provide to your user that is specific to your service or product or whatnot. So limiting yourself to augmented or virtual reality, like a binary model, and sure, they are different, but the whole point is that there is a lot more in between, the whole mixed reality spectrum. And if you want to look more about mixed reality, go to Wikipedia. It's a very good article actually explaining it in very simple terms, very accessible what mixed reality is. And there is a deeper discussion into more dimensionalities of it. But mixed reality is more than just augmented and virtual reality. So here is an example. You've probably seen these on YouTube, these videos. This is On-Site, a collaboration between Microsoft and NASA. So the NASA scientist is working on that workstation, and the workstation is real. It's the actual physical computer he's working on. But it is Mars all around, right? So is this augmented reality or virtual reality? Right? It's part virtual reality because it's Mars. It's part, I guess, augmented virtuality because it's the real station in this virtual environment. But also the other side of the room could be the real room maybe augmented with some windows or whatnot. So that is probably some sort of augmented reality. So it's sort of like a combination of everything together. So this is one of those cases that you have to think beyond just AR or VR. And sure, today, most devices fall into one of the two categories. Because today we're limited by the technology choice for the display. AR use see-through transparent screens, and VR, they use opaque, completely obscuring displays. And there are trade-offs made between the two. And this technology evolves very quickly. I mean, we all know technology does evolve very quickly. And sure, you can say, you know, some of them are too bulky, too heavy, FOV is too big, or resolution too small, or tethered to the cable to a PC or whatnot, right? But I don't have a crystal ball. I mean, I do have one. I didn't learn how to use it yet. But it's probably safe to assume that within the next 10 years, this distinction between AR and VR is going to disappear. One way or another, there are devices approaching from the AR end of the spectrum, and there are devices approaching it from the VR end of the spectrum. And some devices already tap into the mixed reality parts of it, covering more than just strictly AR or VR. So then, how do we come up with these differentiated ideas, I guess? How do we think about mixed reality? How do we make it special? So to exemplify sort of like the line of thinking, I'll show you an sort of like a parallel example. This is when the iPhone first came out, one of the most successful apps in the App Store. And I'm not trying to pick on Apple. All new platforms have, the first apps are very goofy, right? And they're trying to leverage unique opportunities. But this was top 10 in the App Store for a full year. It was #1 for like 2 months. Generated, like sold lots of copies, generated over $10,000 per day. So definitely there is success there. And maybe this is American sense of humor, but they definitely did something right. They leveraged a unique capability of the iPhone, of it being a mobile device, always available, always ready for any opportune moment to use it. Right? This app would not make sense on any other form factor. Like imagine having it on a PC. Like really, who's going to be using it there, right? So this app leveraged the unique capability of the iPhone and became successful. So how does this relate to AR and VR? Current apps in AR and VR really are leveraging just very few unique capabilities of the new medium. And sure, $10,000 a day, that's not a bad deal, right? I mean, I can sign for that stuff like any day. But to really leverage and to tap into the long-term success and to be really kind of successful long-term, right? You have to think beyond just one differentiated feature of the platform. Let's say new apps that are, came much later on the iPhone, like Instagram or Snapchat and so on. They were using more capabilities of the platform. Also, that iPhone was always online connected. They had a camera, the social network, and so on and so on. So it's a much more complex service. So that made them a lot more successful. Because iFart still in the store, but it's not generating that much money anymore. So then again, how do we think about mixed reality? How do we think about it like sort of like in a different way? So this is what comes to mind when we think about holograms. I call this cinematic reality. It's sort of like an image created in our brains from all these movies. it's really the only point that we have to refer to. And it definitely very entertaining, very good movies. But the problem is, this is not real. Minority Report, Tom Cruise, operating with that interface, with his hands all stretched around, that doesn't work more than a couple of minutes. People say like, oh, no more than half an hour. No, have you tried actually holding your hands in front of you? A couple of minutes, it's a very long time. But it looks impressive. Or like the Terminator, having the HUD in front of you, right? That's one of the first things I tried, actually. It's not a good experience. Trust me. We, as human beings, we evolved to process information in the world, like in front of us, volumetric, right? We don't have anything strapped to our face normally. That's what we have to process. So these movies, I love them. Definitely very dramatic, and I'm rewatching many of them again and again. But this is not how really things work. So then, how do things work? Well, now I'm going to go over the 8 differentiated features of mixed reality. So I guess that's the meat of the presentation, so pay attention. So, mixed reality device, HoloLens or other devices, it's a wearable computer, much like your smartphone. It has a camera, it's online connected, can run apps. But unlike your smartphone, it's not always with you, always connected in the moment. It's more like a tablet. You turn it on, you accomplish a task, then you put it away. So it's a task-driven device. Sure, in the future, these headsets are going to be small enough, comfortable enough, maybe contact lenses or whatnot, right? More importantly, maybe socially acceptable. We all know what happens to Google Glass. But unless you're working on a 20-year strategy ahead, I would focus on it being purpose-driven, task-focused device. So you put it on with a very specific thing in mind when you're going to be doing it. Things like, oh, I'm going to see my notifications. That could be useful, but users are not going to put that on for that specifically. So I can have as many screens as I want, anywhere I want. I'm not limited by the physical screens anymore. This gives a whole new meaning to the notion of being mobile. I can have my entertainment and I can accomplish my task, my productivity, whatnot, wherever I want. I'm not tied to physical screens anymore. So think of it in the context of sort of like the current ecosystem of devices. There is already a competition that you have to overcome with, competing with all the other screens that users have. They have cell phones, tablets, TV, Xbox, whatnot. So your app has to fit in there, provide the extra value, and fight for their attention. How are you going to compete with all these unlimited virtual screens? But probably a better question is, how are you going to take advantage of those unlimited screens? Because you can offer your functionality across many screens. Like, can you go beyond a window, beyond a screen? We can look sort of like the next step into that. So we can remove the screens altogether. Now the whole world is our canvas. The interactions move out. And now it's a truly mixed world of physical and virtual. Like that motorcycle, the chassis is real, right? But all the green parts, the add-ons, they're virtual. And you can interact with either one of them at any given time. So what does that mean, really, thinking of natural human interfaces, in terms of what kind of value can you provide? So what kind of apps can you build? definitely it can go beyond the context of a motorcycle, right? In terms of visualization, seeing things in context, seeing things in at scale or whatnot. Because I can put anything I want in real size in the real world, or in any size in any world. Still with me? So think of what kind of opportunities can you leverage here. Just think beyond the screens. And we can go further. So this is a Case Western human anatomy app. I believe it's available in the store. But the point here is that in mixed reality, we are present in the real world and virtual world at the same time. And we can collaborate and point to things and discuss things in a very natural way, just the way we're used to. Even more to it, like we can have also some sort of private information displays only to us, like to each member, right? And that private information could be also, like for example, something in a specific language tailored to me, right? So then these collaborations become really, it's like real-time translations, I guess, augmented collaborations, right? And real-time translation may feel like kind of like science fiction-y, but Skype can already do that today. So it's not that a far-fetched scenario. So let's go crazier. So that is Alex Kipman. He's on the TED stage giving a talk about HoloLens. And on stage with him is Jeff Norris, a NASA scientist. Now, Jeff is virtual, right? He's being streamed from a nearby conference room. And like if you look at the floor, that is part of Mars, right? So if you think about it, Jeff is on Mars. He is also at the same time in the nearby conference room, but he's also on the TED stage, right? They're having a live conversation all at the same time. So location, virtual and physical, they really blend. Now they're one and the same. With this, what does it mean to have a meeting, right? And where? Like tomorrow, 10 o'clock, please be present on time. We're going to be meeting on Mars. And in several years, probably that's not going to be that's such a crazy statement anymore. Yep. Okay. So this is Fragments, a game available in the store on HoloLens. The headset, a mixed reality headset, it's scanning the environment constantly and constantly reconstructing what's around the user to be able to properly place content in there. So developers can take advantage of that and place content in context. Like for example, in this case, the virtual characters can actually sit in our sofa in our living room. Or if there is no place to sit, no chair and a sofa, they're going to stand. Right? So the experience is going to adapt to the environment. And think of it like if you watch a movie in your living room that is happening there in context of what you have in your actual real living room, right? That's going to be a lot more impactful. Like say you're coming home one evening and your spouse asks you like, what happens? Why you're not sitting in your usual spot? And you're like, well, somebody was poisoned there yesterday. It's like, have you been watching mixed reality movies again? It's a whole new level of emotional connection because things are happening in your space. And long after you take the headset off, things seem still real. Like you remember, you go to a different room and you know, oh, I left that virtual slate, whatever it is, in the other room. So you go there and you don't see it. And like, oh, I forgot to put my headset on. But you know it's there. This visceral connection is real and very physical. So try to think beyond just placing objects in a user's world, right? Take advantage of the environment. How can you leverage what's happening in the user's world, their emotional connections? So next. So the mixed reality headset, like I said, is constantly scanning, right? Constantly listening, so is completely aware of what the user is doing, of the context of what things are happening in. So this is hyper context. I can have what I need, when I need, where I need it, exactly, because my headset knows about it. And in this example, Holoskype, it's also combined with communication, right? So fundamentally, training and learning is disrupted with this. It's never going to be the same anymore. And it doesn't have to be a human being on the other end. It could be a virtual assistant, right? Helping me fix a leaking pipe on Mars. So again, think beyond just what's available or what the user is sharing explicitly, because there is a lot of information shared implicitly with these headsets. And users give sort of like implicit or maybe explicit acknowledgments or approval of this information being used, because otherwise you cannot use that headset. And regardless of where you stand on the privacy spectrum, you know, either all for, all against, or anywhere in between. But the gist of it is that your users may opt in to use the services if you're providing appropriate value for the privacy level that you require, right? Or they may rebel if they feel like they're being taken advantage of. So next. So this is the last eighth one, really crazy. This is a prototype my colleagues at Microsoft have built. And it visualizes the propagation of Wi-Fi waves through the building. So if you locate where the Wi-Fi routers are, you can see how these waves propagate through the building, and you can actually position those Wi-Fi routers in better ways or for better coverage or whatnot. I mean, it's a simulation of those Wi-Fi waves, right? But this exemplifies that you can see what normally we cannot see, right? We can augment our senses, and you can imagine being able to see, for example, thermal data on a factory floor from all the sensors all around. And factories these days are all instrumented with different smart sensors and devices and so on. Like IoT is a new term in consumer space, but in manufacturing in the industrial sphere, IoT has been there for many years already. Or maybe, like for example, in a store, you can visualize the traffic that customers have, right? And sure, you can visualize that on a tablet or whatnot, but being in that space actually and walking through and seeing what the patterns are gives a total new understanding of what's happening there. You can relate to those humans that were moving through that. So you can supplement data visualization with your human understanding. You don't have to look at a tablet with rows of data anymore. There are probably lots of ideas that you can still dig in through this. But anyway, these are the 8 differentiated features. And like I said, most apps today, they leverage 1, 2 probably out of them. So if you want a bit of a workout for your brain, try use like 4, 6, maybe all of them at the same time in an app. Now that will be true competitive advantage, like true differentiation, right? That app is gonna really stand its ground and be different in the value it provides compared to others. So then, I guess what's the next step? I've seen these quotes like in very many variations on the internet, but not in this one. I don't know, I can't claim authorship of this one, so I guess it's internet. But really, I hope you get the message that you have to get going. And being in this group, I think I'm speaking to an audience that is already doing that. The market is very fragmented at this point. There are lots of types of devices, lots of types of tools and operating system and whatnot, right? But really, it's critical to start understanding and learning what mixed reality is, because there is really no proxy for it. You have to try different things to see how they work and to really understand the fundamentals behind it from a human psychology point of view. Like, remember, our thinking is still shaped by movies. And our first instincts on what kind of features we would implement or what we would offer to the customer, those are actually not the best ones. So you really have to iterate and try things. Sure, like for HoloLens, you can use the emulator to iterate on. I would say that is very good to iterate from a dev or functional point of view, that it does work, it doesn't crash, or it does display the colors that you want. But really, from an experience point of view, there is no replacement. You have to have a headset. You have to be in that experience. You have to go through to experience it to see what works, what doesn't. Our brains are not logical. Some things that make perfect sense, you try them, and our brains just refuse to take it, right? Like with VR, like we get motion sickness. But then there are things that don't make any sense, like you put a virtual nose in VR, and all of a sudden people feel better. Makes absolutely no sense. But I guess it's evolutionary how we evolved to process information in the world. So really what I'm talking about is you have to experiment. You really have to test your ideas. And I mean, this is true for any business, any startup, any venture, right? You have to test your ideas, but even more so in mixed reality because our understanding is not there yet. So this is an additional step that we have to overcome. So again, this is one of those once-in-a-lifetime opportunities of fundamental technological change that's going to disrupt most industries, if not all, and businesses. It's going to fundamentally change how we work, how we learn, how we communicate, how we entertain ourselves. So I guess the message is don't get left behind. So I'm Anatolie Gavriliuc. I work for Microsoft. Thank you.
So we'd like to open up the floor to a few questions. This microphone will work in a moment and will help in the recording and broadcasting. So if you don't mind coming up and speaking into the mic with your questions, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.
Hello. Hey, good talk. So for the co-presence stuff, I've been working on like VR, like shared presence stuff for quite a while, and there's like a pretty healthy like social VR scene of people going into these spaces together. But with any sort of AR hardware, you have the limitation of like all the stuff to get another human into a space with you is pretty like non-consumer. It's usually like a bunch of Microsoft Kinects or cameras like scanning you in. Like no consumer is going to set up all that system. So when do you see a system coming to one of the AR devices that will actually have some sort of consumer level co-presence capabilities?
Right. No. Anyway, well, first of all, it's a current problem, right? It's a current limitation of technology. The easiest answer there is like you can use the same technique in AR that you use in VR. You can represent other people through their avatars, right? That's like the simple answer. You can do that today.
Although you wouldn't have the hand tracking.
It depends. Different systems like HoloLens tracks hands to some degree, right? They're just gesture based, but still there is hand tracking. Hopefully it's not going to blow up.
I have a couple questions. I think that this question is more like a social than technology. Think about this way. People wear the glasses, HoloLens, for example, when they really cannot tell what's the reality, real reality, and what's the misreality. So in Texas, it's illegal to carry a gun all the time, right? I think it's going to happen, right? So they really don't know. They, probably by instinct, they just shoot real guns. It's really what happened, I think. So I think that's will create a lot of social problems. But probably should not be answered by this.
For sure,
Yeah.
we're going to face lots of new social issues, both positive and negative. It's a new technology, same Bluetooth headsets, right? The way I see it is that it depends on how this technology is, sort of like the intent for that technology, what that is. Like, for example, a welding mask, right? It's ugly like hell, but nobody's gonna ridicule somebody wearing a welding mask because, you know, they're doing the job, right? And that's mask is actually very critical to that job. So likewise, like HoloLens is a device that's its purpose to achieve a specific task. You put it on to run some apps, do whatever work, entertainment, whatever it is, but it has a very specific task-oriented goal. Google Glass probably, I assume, failed because it was this sort of like lifestyle choice, and definitely we're not ready for that. But in terms of confusion or what's going to happen, again, it's going to depend on the context. If somebody is wearing a headset and all of a sudden does crazy stuff, well, that person maybe is crazy, at least somewhat, right? But if they have a purpose for wearing it and a purpose for what they're doing, even like with Bluetooth headsets, right, of those little things, like, sure, it's look kind of strange, but we do understand very quickly, oh, that person is on the phone, and we can accept that, even though sometimes it's kind of startling or unexpected.
So when you look at a lot of the demos that you're seeing in this augmented reality space, I've noticed that it's very clearly cut between hyper-specific enterprise uses and entertainment consumer uses. But if you look at a lot of the most popular software today, it kind of bridges that gap. You look at the Office, you look at the Google Drive, the email suites. Do you have any insights into what some kind of technology that has the opportunity to bridge that gap on a development perspective might look like in augmented reality?
Well, I guess I have several thoughts on that. I can back a bit from that and say that HoloLens is a general purpose computing device, right? It's a new form of human-computer interaction, but it's not really intended at the end specifically for business or games. It's definitely marketed currently as more of a business-centric device because if you think of any new technology, the adoption curve always went through the enterprises first. Even the iPhone was the touchscreen, right? That was not a new thing. Smartphones were present before then. It's just the technology was ready at that point to bridge the gap from enterprise, from Blackberries or whatnot, to consumer size. It was cheap enough, it was high quality enough, it was affordable. So this is probably the most logical sense for the new devices to enter the enterprise route. Sure, also maybe hardcore gamers, right? Because they're willing to spend more money and to finance the development of this new technology as well. Like they're driving the video cards and high-end PCs developments to a big degree. And on the Microsoft side, the purpose with the very first apps released on HoloLens was definitely to showcase sort of like the spectrum of what is possible. So think of it as more so like extremes on a spectrum rather than world-balanced experiences. the idea is to inspire and show developers, like, hey, look, it's possible to go way over there and way over here. So look how much terrain you have to kind of play with and come up with other experiences. So in the end, it's up to the developers to figure out what of those high usage scenarios are, in a way, what is the killer app, right? To try different things to see what works and become successful. Because Microsoft, in the end, is a platform provider. Come on, you should have more difficult questions.
I have a question regarding the adaptive environment. And with the general flat interface, it is somewhat removed. There's a visual interaction with it. And in terms of adaptive, I was wondering if headsets or other devices have included other types of sensors that might detect a psychological state, determine when someone is becoming agitated. And then with that additional connectedness, if there are also privacy issues that would arise from that.
There are definitely going to be privacy issues. There is no way around this, right? In terms of determining somebody's emotional state, I'm not sure to what degree these are specifically going to be incorporated into the headsets, because if this would be like a main usage scenario, a high usage scenario, right, then they would probably be incorporated. But for cases when this is sort of like a niche market or a fringe usage of them, then probably they will not be incorporated, but you can always kind of use secondary devices. Like, I know, you can have a fitness device, right, that talks to your HoloLens. HoloLens is a full Windows 10 PC. You can connect through Bluetooth and you can get the data there. So if users find value in that, they can definitely augment the main headset with other peripherals. I mean, the privacy is definitely sort of like the next frontier to sort out. With HoloLens, for example, you can detect the heartbeat just because our heads can just slightly nod in the tact of our heartbeat. I'm not sure how reliable it is, because when you talk, the head also vibrates, and other things happen, and there is a lot more noise. But just as an example, you have more access to the user data than, let's say, a smartphone or a tablet. So again, it's a hyper context that you have access to, and definitely you have to have users opt into that to let the system use that information.
There's also a chat stream on our streams that may or may not be being used at the moment, so we're just double checking to see if there are any online questions. But please, if you do have more questions, to go back in the search kind of for the killer app, it seems to me that the really interesting app will have a huge database on the back end of it, and it'll be a cloud-based type of thing, and with people interacting in many physical locations and potentially. Do you see Microsoft kind of bringing tools on the back end to support that?
I'm not sure what kind of tools would be useful in terms of like beyond Azure providing cloud services and being able to host and being available online 24/7 and high reliability, or through distributed centers everywhere worldwide, right? It's if some of these scenarios emerge, right? Because like on Azure, lots of third-party frameworks, tools, and so on are also being made available, right? So I don't see any, at least me personally, I don't know. I don't see any sort of like one thing that would solve that. Probably you want to tap into social networks as well, like Facebook, LinkedIn. So those are non-Microsoft networks as well. Um, so I hope this kind of answers the question. It is probably also an opportunity to create this kind of tool sets and services on the back end too, and to offer developers this functionality. That would be also an opportunity here. Like the Cooptry, actually, it's a good example. Thank you.
So let's see. Member discount page is an important page for you guys to visit. It gets more important all the time. I assume some of you guys might buy books, either real hard books or ebooks. Most of the publishers are supporting us from different sponsor levels. Pearson is responsible for, I don't know, dozen different publishing names that you might recognize. And they offer significant discounts to user groups like us. So we have codes online that you can check out from a member-only page. And if you're going to be ordering books, you probably want to check out those codes and do some comparative shopping. It might save you some money. Also, with events, both the Immerse Technology Conference that I mentioned earlier that we're a co-sponsor of, early bird pricing is now passed, but you guys get better pricing than the early bird pricing, and it's not passed. It keeps going right up. So if you're planning on going to this conference, before you register, please check out this page and get the registration code to save yourself a couple bucks. And Unite 2016 in LA, running from November 1st to 3rd. Unity is a major sponsor of our group. They cover our meetup costs. We're really focused on Unity development for HoloLens. So they also offer us some significant discounts on a pretty major conference that happens annually. And you should check that out as well. So I want to give a big thank you to all of our sponsors, and I'm hoping folks online are hearing and seeing this too. There are a number of companies that make it possible for us to hold these meetings each and every month. Unity and Microsoft, two major players. Orange Studios provides us this space, and they're a co-workspace that if you need meeting rooms and other things, there are coupons available up at the door for you to get one-day passes and check out the space by day and see what kind of business opportunities it might present you. Route 3 has provided us, will be providing us pizza, and they've been providing us pizza each and every month for the last couple of months and going forward. So we really appreciate that because it makes conversation time a lot better if your stomach's not growling. Trimble shouldn't still be on that list. I should have edited that out. They did provide us a couple of free licenses. So maybe because those were major licenses, it's worth giving them an extra plug and a thank you for them. We're still seeing if there are opportunities for Trimble to sponsor us again in the future. Leap Motion provides us door prizes, and as I mentioned, most of the publishers are also providing us door prizes that we're going to get up to in a moment. And we are co-sponsors with Immerse, and I really enjoyed CVR last year, and that's why I was quite active in reaching out to them, because it's a local conference that impacts our industry in a fairly significant way.